computer yet. Without further ado, let us start our last year of the year. I can't believe we're here. We got through a lot of Simanim. We did a lot of good stuff, but we have really a very good Siman to do today. So let's start right with it. We're going to talk about a very practical topic, which is, cutting onions, because this is always a question. I cut onions now. What can I do with them? Can I use them in my milchik? Can I use them in my fleishik? Or what if I did put them in the wrong place? It's actually one of probably the most one of the several most likely scenarios in which you actually have to ask a rabbi. So it's a good topic. So as we usually do, or as I usually do, and I think we usually do, I think that if we understand the Gemara really correctly, really deeply, we will see all the opinions in the Rishonim already in the Gemara. So let's start with the Gemara, and I want to start with Chulin. This is Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Bet, and I want to go. I think I gave you actually from just the very bottom of the page, but there's actually another section I want to look at, which is towards the middle of the page, like the middle of the narrow lines, and we can start. I mean, it really starts at the top of the page, kind of, but let's start with Yativ Rav Kahana. See that? Maybe Yavni, you want to read?
Sure. Yativ Rav Kahana achua derav Yehuda kame derav Huna ויתיב וכאמר קערה שמלח בה בשר אסור לאכול בה רותח וצנון שחתכו בסכין מותר לאכלו בכותח.
Okay, so translate.
Yeah. So Rav Kahana, the brother of Rav Yehuda, sat before Rav Huna, and he sat there and he said that a bowl that you salted meat in it, you can't eat it with something hot and a
why what's the problem?
Is it the blood Is blood the issue?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Blood. You salted meat in this dish, so blood got into the dish.
Itself.
Even though it's cold, really, but it's the salt is like activating it. And so now there's blood in this dish, so you can't eat in it anything because blood is forbidden. Right? It's not even basar or halab, it's just anything. Okay, and then he gives another halacha.
And he teaches also that the radish that you cut with a knife, you are permitted to eat it with yogurt. Presumably the relevant feature of the knife being that it's a knife that has been used to cut meat.
So let's look at Rashi. So first of all, we're talking about a knife that obviously you cooked meat, I guess, and now you want to eat the radish with kutach, so you got milk and meat issue. But look at Rashi. It says with snon shechatchu b'sakin. That's the divra matchil.
Yeah. Should I do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Agav chulfei detznon igras beloaz הוא בולע משמנונית הסכין הקרוש עליו והווה היצנון נתינת טעם ראשון שהרי בלה איסור ממש והווה כבשר. This is like even though
yeah, go ahead.
Even though with the spiciness of the radish, it is going to absorb from the grease that is kicked onto the knife, and then the tznon is like getting a single a direct nitinat time because it's absorbing directly from isur mamash. I guess it's maybe it's a sakin that has been used to cut isur. I don't know.
No, it's funny. Rashi
it's really isur.
It's not really isur. It's isur relative to the kutach. In other words, it absorbed meat, which Rashi is referring to it colloquially as isur, but it's really just
I guess
basar.
it'll absorb
But
Yisur Mamash when it's dipped into the
but
kutach.
notice that
It'll absorb the basar. I don't know, basar b'chalav
it'll
Mamash.
become Isser. Yeah, theoretically it'll become Isser. And you with the kutach. Notice that Rashi is saying here that there's Shuman on the knife, which is going to be the way he reads all these Gemaras.
Right.
Okay. So nevertheless, it's mutter. So read the next Rashi.
מותר לאוכלו לאותו צנון בכותח, שיש בו ניסיובי דחלבה, כדי מפרש טעמה, דכיוון שבלה מן השמנונית דהתרה בלה.
Right.
Wait, so you're allowed to eat that radish with yogurt because, yeah?
Yeah, because it's hetera bala, he calls it. It when it went into the radish, it was heter. It's a very surprising thing because if his mama shudeth, there's fat there, then why are you eating this with this kutach? But he's saying, well, it's heter bala. When it got into the radish, it came in a heter way. So therefore, it's not going to be forbidden to eat it with kutach. That kind of goes against what we would think, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's go back to the Gemara here. Maybe who would like to read back to the Gemara? Maybe. Yeah, Raphael. Okay, go, Raphael.
מהי תמה? אמר אביי, היתר הבלם והאיסור הבלם.
Oh, so explain that.
So that's basically what we just said. The difference between Kara Shemalach Babasar, that Dam is Asur. Dam is always Asur, not only in the context of Basar V'chala.
Right.
Kuter, the situation of the Tznon, the Shamnunit is Basar, and Basar is not Isser on its own. It's Isser only when it meets Chalal. Like, we don't actually, according to this, like in this phase in the Gemara, we are actually looking on the objective, as you said, Nachum, the mamashut of the Yisur. It's actually Shamnunit going into Kutar. We're looking about we're already looking at something quite removed. That's why.
Yeah, somehow, even though the Gemara doesn't say anything about Shuman, and Rashi puts in Shuman, the Shuman sort of makes the situation worse.
Mm-hmm.
But Rashi is consistently going to put in Shuman here. So the Shuman on the knife, and as we could imagine the knife being clean, and then it would be a little bit more easy to understand this Gemara. I mean, a lot more easy to understand the Gemara. But when we're talking about Shamnunit on the knife, it makes it a little bit more problematic.
Yeah,
but let's just bear that in mind.
Yeah. So האיסור בלה, אמר לי הרב, וכי בלה היתר המאיה, וסוף סוף היתר דעתי לידי איסור ההוא. דאיסור כאכיל.
That's, in other words, that's exactly what was bothering us all along. What are you telling me? It's heter bala. It doesn't matter. It's going to eating with kutak. Now it's isser. So what do I care? So Rashi was explaining the Gemara. He was explaining that moment in the Gemara. So go ahead.
אלא אמר רבא, אי אפשר למית עמי ואי אפשר למית טמא. So basically, the difference here is that what Rabbi basically says that there's no mamshut. When we do melicha, the tam exists. It is the tam. The tam is in the kiara.
And you can't taste the kara. You can't taste the kara because you can't. What are you going to do? You're going to bite the plate. You can't eat a plate, but you can eat the. Well, look at Rashi. Read Rashi. Sof. No, skip the sof. Hi.
It's not אפשר לו ישראל לטעמו קודם שיתננו בכותך. מותר כדאמר טעמו בתחילה ולא היה בו טעם שמנונית. The reason why...
Yeah, go ahead, explain.
לא, והי דם קערה לא אפשר למית טמא לפי שאסור אי לכך אין לו תקנה. So like לא אי אפשר למית טמא, I understand it not that practically you can't bite into the קערה, but that's a plausible explanation. I understood it like reading Rashi and the Gemara. What I understood is that basically we're speaking about the question: can I actually do it permissibly? The mifchan te'imuna.
In other words, right? He says like this: Snon efshar lo Yisrael toma. A Jew could taste it.
Before eating.
But v'hai mutter the ka'amar. When it says mutter in the Gemara, it doesn't mean it's always mutter. It means kagon shetamo b'tchila v'lo hayabo tam shamnunit. It only means that it's mutter if there was no taste. But if there was taste, then for sure you can't do it. So when it said mutter, didn't mean it's always mutter, just meant it's mutter if there's no taste. So we have this idea of tasting it. And now, v'hai dam b'kara, lo efshar l'tamo, says Rashi, lefisha aserhu, hilchach ein lo tekana heter. You said it's aser. What's aser?
The dam in
In
the
other words,
kara, meaning the
If you put food into the kara, you couldn't then taste the food, you want to say. Yeah, but you could, of course, ask a Gentile. You could, of course, ask a Gentile to taste it.
yeah, of course, but then it's kfela. Like
Right.
what the Abaye
So
and
why
Rava
doesn't
are
the Gemara should really ask? Well, not, it's not like Gemara should be. The Gemara should really ask now. So let it kfela taste it. Why
But
say
it
it's
does.
aser?
Isn't that it does go on past that, right?
it-
אמר
it
לי
does.
רב פאפא לרבא ולטעמי כפי לעמה.
Oh, exactly.
Exactly, no, but that's the point. And
So
in
go
this,
on. So go on. So read the Gemara.
so what the Gemara says is, אלא אמר רב אפשר למית למי אפשר למי תמי, אמר לי רב פאפא לרבא ולטעמי כפי לעמה, מלותנן כדאירא שבישל בבשר לא יבשל בחלב, אם בישל בנו תן טעם, בישל בתרומה לא יבשל בחולין, אם בישל בבנו ייתן טעם, ואמרינן בישלמה תרומה טעם לכהן, אלא בשר בחלב מן טעם לה, אמר לה למי תמי כפי לה, הכי נמי למי תמי כפי לה, and Rava responds, "Achinami kamina deleka kfela." So like he's trying
so
to
he's saying the
explain.
whole case is where there was no kafela there. So he's saying, but really, they're both mutter if you have a kafela. Of course, it's a little bit weird still because, all right, so it's not weird. So you would put theoretically, I mean, it's a little bit not comparable because I see I'm still bothered by what I said about eating the plate because what would you do? You would put a potato into the plate and then give it to a kafela and ask him if it has a taste, but now you've ruined your potato potentially. Now, in the other case, you could taste it and you would eat everything. You would before you entered into the problematic situation, you would taste it. But by the isser, you'd have to already get into an isser. You'd have to create this potentially usser potato and then give it to a goy. Okay, but that's what the Gemara is saying. But all right, so what's my point here? Basically, what's the din that the Gemara is saying? The basic din is that you can taste it. So this whole thing of like onions being chopped, or I'm saying onions, or snom, let's say, it's literally talking about stone, but let's say onions. The Gemara seems to be saying very clearly that if you cut your onions with a fleshik knife, so go ahead and taste it. And if you taste it's no fleshik there, then go ahead and put it in your milchik soup. No, right? Nobody knows, nobody follows a halacha like this, but that would be, I mean, actually the Shulchan Aruch does, but
Right.
the Ashkenazim don't follow such a halacha. But theoretically, yeah, just taste it. That should be enough. This also sheds light on the previous Siman. In the previous Siman, we did not suggest tasting it. When we talked about fish going onto the plate and then eating it with kuta chabavli, nobody suggested just taste the fish and see. Here we're saying just taste it, and is there fleshik there or not? And if not, then everything's fine. So you see, by the way, that's sort of a proof that in the previous Siman, when we said that there's no that not bar not is mutter, it was saying even if there's a taste, it's mutter. Even if there's a taste, tasting won't help because we're going to give you a heter if it's not bar not, even when there's a taste. So anyway, so that's the first part of the Gemara. Now skip to the last. Oh, Aaron, go ahead.
I don't even know that we need that proof to know that for not bar not, because if the heter for not bar not is only when there's no taste, then we wouldn't need a special heter anyway. Then there would be no taste to begin with. But even without this Gemara, we would know that not bar not has to be a heter when there is a taste. Otherwise, it wouldn't be permitting anything additional.
You might have thought that not bar not is like about determining whether you're gonna get a taste or something like beetle, maybe.
Yeah, maybe an a priori determination of whether there's taste there. It may just be saying we don't care what you think. There's no taste there, or there is taste there. In other words, it could be also chumrah. It could be saying even when there's no taste, it's going to be usher. But whatever. Anyway, that's last week's year. Let's continue. But I agree with you. Your point is well taken. In other words, it really has to be that there's taste there. In fact, that's what is correct. The correct interpretation there. There is taste there. I'm just emphasizing it. I'm really just emphasizing it. But anyway, go ahead. Wait. So Raphael, read the bottom of this line of this page. It says snom. The last line says such word snom.
Rav Nachum, we were talking to me.
Yeah, Raphael, go ahead
Yeah.
and read the last line of the page.
צנון שחתכו בסכין, שחתך בבשר, אכלו לאכול בכותך. Yes, אני מילי צנון. Just a second. אני מילי צנון. דאגב חופה בלה. אבל קישוט גר לי בפסקי ואכיל. קילחה דליפתא שרי, דסילקה סירי. והיא פתח בהוא דליפתא, שפר דם. So they're making a distinction. They're making a distinction between levels of.
Let's get all the cases. Let's get all the cases. The first case is snow,
Snow.
and you cut it with a knife, and the knife is fleshig. So now you can't eat it with kutach. When we say you can't eat it with kutach, we just previously said we could eat it with kutach, right? What's the difference? How do we? Are these two Gemaras contradicting each other on the same page? No, because we just explained that you can't eat it with kutach.
When you taste it and there's no tongue.
So when it says here, asur l'achol b'kutach, what does it mean?
When you didn't taste it and saw it there.
When you tasted it, and there was a flavor of meat there.
Or suffix.
Just taste it. Why should there ever be a suffix?
No, if you didn't taste it before, like you simply.
But here it's saying muter l'achol b'kutach. It's not talking about a b'diavad. It's telling you a priori. It's telling you go ahead and eat it with your kutach. So it must be talking about a case where you tasted it and there was no meat there. And then you can say, well, that's obvious then. But okay, maybe it's not so obvious. So, right?
And then you have kishot that has kishuim, I don't know how you say it in English. Zucchinis. Zucchinis.
Kishot, kishuim, like zucchini or squash. What do you do? What's a squash? Aval squash, aval kishot, garir lebei psika va'achil. Just scrape off the edge, and then you can eat it because it's not harif. It's not harif. So there's the other one. When it said the other one, by the tznon, you can't remove it. You don't. Apparently, you can't take off everything. You're not. Yeah, it doesn't help.
But it's not a docha. That's the interesting thing. Even though kishot is not harif, because it's wet, we do treat it as something that does need some removal.
There's somebody who says that about wet, but right, for whatever reason, you have to remove it. Yeah, well, according to Rashi, if you go back and look at Rashi, wait, is it back or is it forward? No, it's forward. So Rashi, kishot, on Rashi and kishot, he says like this. Why is the kishot mutter? He says, mitukahi, it's sweet. Ve'eno nivla b'tocho ela hashamnunit taf va'omed al makom achatach. So it only, the fat just is on the edge and it doesn't go in to the feet, to the thing, and it's sweet. Hilchach garir lebei psike. Now notice the knife is got fat on it. I'm just seeing if there was another. Right. You know, he's saying there's fat. There's fat going onto this thing. You just scrape it off. L'makom achatach. Gorer ma'at b'sakin v'achil. Af b'kutach. You can eat it with the milky food. Hilchak dagim shalu b'kara mutar lo'chlan b'kutach. Kida amar. Therefore, when we said that the fish you could eat with kutach, te'ein noten tam haba min hamamash, ela noten tam haba min noten tam. Because by the fish, why were we so machmir with the fish? Because the fish, we were so lenient with the fish, even though you also there tasted it. Because we were so lenient because there it was not barnat. It was right. This stam kara me kanchim ota. When you serve somebody a fish, you're probably putting it on a clean plate. Mishumana karushala. From any fat that might have been there. Mishum mius, because it's disgusting to eat on a dirty plate. Aval sakin, but a knife, pa'amim shesham nunit karushala. Usually or often there's fat on it. Ve'eno nikar, but you don't notice. But when you cut it with its snon, have a noten tam haba min mamash. That's exactly the distinction. Here, this is what's telling Rashi that it's got to be fat here, because otherwise it would be not parnat. Would be flavor into the knife and knife into the kishut. So there must be actual mamash here, and that's why it's usher. And then he goes on. Va'ol the mishum chorf. So wait a second. So why does he go on about? He should be done now. He's explained to us why it's usher. Then he goes on. Va'ol the mishum chorf abalat fe midagim arotchim, and the harifut actually is more of a conduit, more of a cause of flavor transfer than the hot plate or the hot fish, whichever one is hot. The agav duchta de sakina palit sakina upala sno. And because of the pressure of the knife, it's going to transfer. So it's almost like Rashi's giving 3 reasons why this is more strict than fish. It's almost 3 separate reasons, but we could try to explain them as being all a part of proving. What are the 3 reasons? The one reason is that there's actual fat here. The second reason is that harifut goes beyond klipa. In other words, maybe by the fish we would have only said klipa would be removed if we would have not permitted it. But here we would say the whole thing because it's harif. It's worse. And thirdly, there's dukta de sakina. There's this pressure which is like forcing it in. So that's like saying that 3 different, like it's almost like three terutzim, or 3 reasons why we're being more strict here with the snow. But any questions or comments?
Rashi, the latter 2 for Rashi are linked, right? It's the harifut in combination with the ducha the sakina that
right. You need
exactly.
You need sort of the harif. You need the fat to be sort of pushed in a little bit. And then once it's sort of pushed in, then the harifut pulls it all the way through. You got to say something like that. In any case, it's clearly talking that there's fat here, and that's very different from the case of the fish. And also the harifut just makes it worse. Okay. But so that's it. So wait, so let's go back. We got the din of snon. Now we have the din of kishot. Kishot is sweet, it has the fat, but it doesn't have the harifut. It has just the sakina, but doesn't have the harifut. The harifut is what's going to bring it through the whole thing. So since it doesn't bring it through the whole thing, we just scrape off the edge. Lebei psika, va'achil. And then you can eat it with your kutach. Now go on, Raphael. But kilchi. Sorry.
Kirche de lifte as shari, the silica asire. V'ipatach beud de lifta.
Wait. So explain that. Explain that.
So the
klachim. Rashi says kilchi is klachim, pieces.
The green stuff that grows upon the lefet or the selek.
Oh, I don't know if that's the green stuff. I don't think he means that. You think klachim means the tops?
Yes, in Hebrew Chazal, klachim. Okay. It's an interesting word for like lettuce leaves. They have different layers of leaves. Okay. So kilcha de silka, that's I don't know, in Hebrew we call it mangold today. It's like green selek. I don't.
Yeah, beet leaves, something like that.
Yeah, beet leaves, exactly. So they are more harif than.
Wait a second. So kilchi de lifta shari. What does it mean shari?
Because they
You don't even have to do greda. There's shamnunit there, right? We never said there's no shamnunit there, and now it's shari. Eino charif ela matok ve'ein tam shuman nikarbo. That's what Rashi says. There is shuman there, but it's so matok that it sort of nullifies the fat. There's fat there, but you can eat this fat because it's like, oh, what's the din? What other principle can we use to explain that? Why would it be that it would be permitted to eat this fat? That the principle that we've seen before in Yoreh.
Tam lifgam bepashtis.
Tam lifgam, exactly. Tam lifgam. In other words, it's not tam lifgam in the sense that it's an old pot, but it's tam lifgam in the sense that the fat ruins the flavor of this vegetable. So therefore, even though it's there, it's mutter.
Or the opposite. You can say that the vegetable, and that's the lashon of the Shulchan Aruch, that tam mishune, like the lefet has this weird taste that like nullifies the fat. You thought you were
Okay, yeah.
tasting Tam Isur here, but actually it ruins it.
Right. Right.
It's not that the
The
Isur is
reaction
Tam
between the two. The reaction between the two is like it nullifies it. Okay. But what's asur?
Silke Asur, they have a more salty slash like more present taste. I don't know how to define it.
Do you do greda? Do you do greda? Do you scrape it?
Bepashta ze asire, simply Asur. That's the Pshat Gemara.
Right. So actually we have three levels. We have certain vegetables that there's no help. If you use the fatty knife and you cut them and you taste the flavor there, then you can't eat it with kutach. Other ones, if you cut it with a fatty knife and then you have to remove the flavor if you taste it. And the third type is that even if you taste, no, you don't taste, even though it's there, you don't have to try to remove it because even if you taste it, it's probably ruining the flavor there. Maybe you don't even taste it, but the point is its taste is so there's three levels. One level is forbidden entirely. One level is remove part of it. And the third level is don't do anything. Totally mutter. Even though you use a fatty knife to cut it, right? Everyone sees that? There's three different dinim on three different vegetables.
But then there's the takana of patach be'ulifta.
And now
That
there's
you-
another heter. There's another heter. So read that.
Patach be'ulifta shari. So Rashi explains that basically what's happening here is that
Proper dam.
Shapedam. If you don't need if you're cutting both silica and both lifta leaves, you can mix them, and then the terrible time of the lifta leaves will cancel out, and then
Right.
everything will be muta.
Right. The liftuck leaves can cancel out. Okay, that's a side din. But the main thing is there's three different dinim. So let's summarize. We see that according to Rashi, the knife is, first of all, the knife is shamnuni. Secondly, you could definitely ask a non-Jew to taste it, or a Jew to taste it. You can taste it yourself, and if you don't taste the basar, it's mutter. But if you do taste the basar and it's known, then it's usher, and nothing you can do about it. You can't eat it with kutach. You can't remove a layer. If it's some kind of neutral things like kishot, then you could like cucumbers or yeah, some kind of neutral thing like cucumbers. Then you can just do greda. And if it's some kind of, and then there's other things that are like snow, which is these silka. I guess like the tops. I think that's the tops of like beets or something. Some kind of green vegetable that's like harif, that may be like almost like maror. Then it would be aser also. You couldn't do greda. But if it's lifta, what is lifta? Is like turnips, I think. Yeah. Then it would be mutter, and you wouldn't even have to do greda. Okay.
Right, it's a little bit unclear Rashi's reasoning why for a silka, even if it's doesn't give time at all, but we would still we still wouldn't allow it to be batal unless we're going to say it's like a it's basically a spice, right? Like it is like the time avide and just it has such potency that you're never going to possibly get rid of it.
You're asking an excellent question. You're saying it, which comes out of the way I'm explaining it from reading the first part. The first part was saying, let a Gentile taste it. So why are we usering it ever? Just taste it. So, and you're saying, well, maybe it's a spice. And as you're saying, why do we usher the, no, just taste it. You know, I mean, sorry, but we're usering only when there is a taste there.
I'm talking about the silka, right? How is it that the silka is mikol makom aser? It's great. It's always going to give time. That's
No, presumably the silka you could also taste.
I think the
Presumably the
silka
silka is only
presented
usher
as
when you
being
taste it.
at most the same level as the snow, and generally is slightly less severe. So as in like
Okay.
if you do snow,
Exactly,
we
so
say
you can
the
taste it.
same thing with the silka.
Great. I'm
So
sorry.
the
I
only
meant-
time it's usher is when you taste the flavor of the meat.
Okay, I misheard you. Rev. Nothing. That makes
Now,
sense.
you could taste the silka, and if it's not And if you not Harif, then right, you could learn a little bit differently. I thought of another way of thinking about it, which is
Well, it's not that if it's not Harif, it's that if it doesn't taste, if you don't taste the meat.
sorry, I said the wrong word. Yeah. If you don't taste the meat, I talk very quickly sometimes and I just words come out. But yeah, the if you taste the if you taste the meat, then it's usher. And if you don't taste the meat, it's mutter. You could say no, even if you don't taste, even I could argue, but I mean, whatever. The word doesn't say that. So let's look at Agav Kurfa Vala. So can Sarah, you want to read the Tosfot Agav Kurfa Vala?
Sure. אגב חורפי בלה, יש להיזהר שלא לחתוך שומין, קרישין ובצלים בסכין חולבת, משום דחורפי טובה. והיכא דהתך ונתנן בקדירה, מלאה מים רותחת, מותר בשישים לבטל טעם הבולע בירק. ונפלט מן הסכין, אבל הזכו בסכין של עובד כוכבים, נעשה הירק כולו נבלה, וצריך 60 לבטל הירק. וצריך עיון אם הסכין מנוכח ואין בן יומו, אי חורפי דידי מלכה לשבח. כדאמר גבי חילתית פרק אין מעמידין. So, if you have
he includes 3 more modern vegetables.
Right. So we have a longer list of vegetables. And so if you have any of this list of like garlic and onions and similar things, if you cut them with
Harishim is leeks.
leeks, yeah, I
leeks.
always forget what the different root vegetables are. If you cut them with a milchik knife, then like you have to be careful about that because they're harif, just like known as harif. And so then, but then you can do bitul if you were to put them in like a boiling pot of water that they could be batel bashishim in that whole thing.
What would have to be batel b'shishim?
So if you cut it with a milchik knife, then it would only be like what actually came in contact with a knife. But if you cut it with a non-Jewish knife, then you would have to do a bitul against the entire vegetable, as opposed to
because of what din? Because of what din?
Hanan.
Hanan.
Yeah.
In other words, Hanan, right? We're seeing that the harifut, I guess, is making it like hot. So we're getting Hanan. We don't say Hanan in heter, right? We don't say Hanan by something that's meat or milk. We only say Hanan by Isuri, unless we're Rabbeinu Ephraim, of course. So you see here the Tos who says there's no Hanan in Shar Isuri. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. But the Ramah would be just like this Tosfot and say, yeah, Hanan b'Shar Isuri. So therefore, you see, by the way, this Tosfos is not paskening like Rabbeinu Ephraim, paskening like Rabbeinu Tam or Tosfot himself, right? So he's saying there's Hanan, and then you would need 60 against all the vegetables. Now, what does the next part of the Tosfos say?
We just talked.
Oh, okay.
And then, but then Sarich Iyun, if the knife was really clean, then maybe kind of nothing happened here.
And Eino Ben Yomo, and an old knife. If it's a clean old knife,
then
we need to decide.
Right. Then it could be that it's that like, yeah, there's not enough real transfer here to have a problem.
Right. This is basically because Rashi seems to say it needs to be shamnunit there in order for it to be a problem. But he's also saying, well, I don't quite understand why it needs to be shamnunit there. If it's hari, why there's balua in the knife? Why can't it go because of the heat and the pressure and the harifut? Maybe, but it's sarich iyun. He leaves it as sarich iyun. All right, let's go to Avodah Zarah. An important sugya there. Lamed Tet. Lamed Tet. So here. Oh. So you everyone see it? Court shel chiltit. What does court shel chiltit mean?
A little
Mhm.
bit of asafoetida.
Yeah.
A little bit of asafoetida. Yeah, I never have seen that in my life, but
Asafoetida.
Why-
There's still
Am I
people that
pronouncing
cook
it?
with it.
I never know if what the correct way to like asafoetida.
It's asafoetida. I actually saw it once. Like people actually cook with it till today in the Philippines.
I've
and
cooked
places
with
like
it.
that. Huh?
I've cooked with it. At least in British English, it's asafoetida.
Oh wow.
so yeah, I think it's like Indian. I think yeah, it's like Southern Asian something. That's what we said 2 years ago, at least. I didn't know about it until then.
It's very sharp and savory, as one would assume from the sukya.
Yeah. So, but also the key point here, we're going to see that the Rosh is going to make note of, is that it's small court, and it's little pieces, or a little amount, or little amounts. I don't know if it's like many little pieces or just a small amount, but in any case, it's very small. It's cut up small, is the point. Definitely a spice, yeah. Okay, but it's a spice made from what all spices are made from, a plant. So it's a plant. Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, Sarah, can you read a little bit more?
Where do you want us to start?
From a court shel chiltit. We're in the Gemara where it says 2 dots after that. After
Yeah.
it's like
Hold on one second.
7 lines from the where it gets wide.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. והכור של חילטית, מהי תמה? משום דמספיקה לי בסכינה, אף אגב דאמר מר, נותן טעם לפגם מותר. אגב חורפי דחילטיתה מליכה לי שם נוניתה. והווה לי כנותן טעם
Okay, wait.
לשבח ואסור.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So right in the Mishnah that gets listed. And then
that gets listed as one of the foods that are forbidden to buy from a Gentile.
Right, that are right, and like you can never not, like it's always bishalakum basically.
Right.
So then
like they have vina, other things that you're not supposed to buy from goyim, and one of them is this. You can't buy this plant from the goyim. I mean, cut up, but it's court. In other words, already cut. I guess if you got the whole plant, that would be fine, but it's cut.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So what does the
like
Gemara
pull it
say?
out by the root. So then why is this? Because it seems like they cut it with some knife, probably their knife. But then the Gemara asks, okay, but we have this general rule that no tam leaf gam is mutar, and we assume that the kalim haven't been used so for a day. So then any time that would be transferred would be no tam leaf gam. And they say no, because of the like strength of the flavor of the chiltit, it sort of sweetens the fat that would be on it, and it's actually a nice taste, and so then it's asur.
So it's right. So here we're seeing this idea of the charifut making something from tam lifgam to tam tov. But does anyone have a problem with any of the words we read here? Is there anything that's striking about this Gemara that seems a bit weird from everything we know?
So that the shamnunit isn't the thing that we usually say is natan tam lifgam. It's the balua.
Exactly, right.
That's like more than a day old. Yeah.
Right. We would have liked it if the Gemara would have had the word balua shabo. I didn't check different girsas, but I would or the word not even there. You could just say mishavia le, just say, machlele. Just it makes it better. But why shamnunita? So it's like almost like this Gemara is implying a very different din than what we know, which is that like somehow fat would have become tam lifgam on the knife, and then it goes, because it may be sitting there for a day or two, so the fat on the knife also became tam lifgam, and then it goes back and becomes good because of this thing. And by the way, this is also a good proof for Rashi that the knife is fatty. Because right here you see, if Rashi's comparing the sugyas, he's going to say Well, this is why I say the knife is fat. You see here, the knife is fatty. So what's the, wait, what was this din of this hilti? Is it like anything that we learned before in Chulin?
And it seems more
Might-
chamor in the
you-
sense
you
that
might-
you can't. Sorry, go ahead, Alan.
No, go for it, sir.
Just that, like, we're talking about purchasing something as opposed to kind of what you're doing in your own kitchen. And it's the possibility that they might have cut it with a knife that then they might have used for something else. Like, it just seems that's a more attenuated situation.
Well, right. We assume that it's true. We assume that the knife is a goyish knife, so therefore it has fat on it from whatever other things they were cutting, which is probably treif. And by the way, you see from this that knives are kind of assumed to be fatty or assumed to be dirty. And you're right, we're going a bit far. We're saying, first of all, it's dirty. Secondly, we don't know what he cut with it, but we're going to assume that he cut with it, treifus. So that's going to answer it. But which vegetable is it like, is what I'm asking. Which vegetable that we saw before is it like? I mean, it's the most, what does it say?
It's
Asur.
like the most chamor.
Right, because otherwise, what could it have said? It could have said just to buy it. Well, I guess it could have said cut off the edges. But again, it couldn't really say that because it's so small, right? You probably couldn't cut off the edges. There's no edges. Anyway, it doesn't really contradict anything that we saw before. It seems to be the source for what Tosos said. I mean, Tosos quoted it. This is the source for the idea that maybe even if there's no Shamnunit. But wait a second. How could this be the source for where there's no Shamnunit? Tosos brought this as a source for maybe if it's clean and not the time of Gam. But it's like, how can this be the source for where it's clean that it should also be Asur? Here it clearly says there's Shamnunit here. So really,
I guess you can say that it gives you the principle that something that's very harif can kind of make a previously bad flavor good. So if you combine that with the idea that like something that's harif can also cause the knife to exude, then you might think,
right,
there's a problem.
Well, I guess that's why in other words, I guess that's why he leaves it as a sark iyum, right? If it wouldn't have said shamnunit, then it would have been locked. What is this? I don't know what it's called. Locked up. It would have been a sealed case. It would be absolutely clear that even that it doesn't have to be shamnunit. But since here, so you're right. I agree with you 100%, Sarah. In other words, there's a proof here that there's this principle of things that are pagum being unpagum by harifut. And maybe the shamnunit is not relevant, it says Tosos. That's why these are the sark iyum. Okay. Right, Tosos actually asked this question that I asked, which is, what about, why not say just take off a klipa? He seems to be assuming that the court maybe isn't so small that you couldn't take off a klipa. And he says, well, why not just take off a klipa? And he says, well, because it's so harif, it goes through the whole thing, which would make it like snom. In other words, he says, maybe it's like snom, which klipa doesn't work for. Okay. And he says at the end, I'm looking at this Tosos Agav Chorfei. At the very end, he says, V'shamati b'shem haram dechil tita davka decharif tfei v'lo batal v'kilfto kiflot. In other words, he's saying maybe this is a special din only by Hiltit, that it does this. That's another reason to do a sark iyum. Maybe it's only by Hiltit that it's able to turn something from pagum to not pagum. Nobody seems to be bothered by the Shuman issue that I'm bothered by. Okay, let's go to the tour. I should check. Somebody should check. Rabbi Landis.
Why weren't they bothered? I can't get over it either. Why weren't they bothered by the Shanamit, the shoe? Why not? Why are they
Well,
bothered?
I have a thought on it, and here's my
I also
thought.
have a thought. I'll hear yours first.
You hear
No,
mine
yours
first.
first. Yours first.
I'll remember. You can say yours first. But I'll tell you my thought.
No,
My thought is like,
I think that it was so hard to eradicate that they had a tolerance level that,
to eradicate what? To eradicate the fat.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's-
that's what I was kind of going to say. I was thinking that, I mean, this is like a sort of an earthquake thought because it changes everything. I think we talked about it when we learned this before, but the idea that maybe the whole idea of balua.
yeah.
I mean, this is, I hesitate to even say this, but maybe the whole idea of balua is really is talking about real balua, not imaginary balua, real balua. Like you have some kind of grease, like you have observable balua on your knife. That's what when all the discussions of balua in a pot, it's because they never had stainless steel pots. They never scraped them with steel wool. They never got them as clean as brand new. And they always had a little bit of residue on it. And when we say shamnunit, we mean residue. And that's what we've always been talking about. All along, we've been talking about, when we talk about balua, but kili, we're talking about of course, it's problematic to say such a thing because we said that you measure it against the whole thing. We don't know how much it's balua, so we say the whole thing. So that clearly seems to say it's not just a residue on the edge, but the whole thickness. So it doesn't really fit with the way we're learning. But this Gemara might indicate that. Just saying it. That's what I'm just expanding what you're saying, Rabbi Landis. Anyway, don't go too far with that idea because it's not halach. Except that, I mean, there is certain rabbis, modern Israeli rabbis, who say that a stainless steel pot that's totally clean is like glass. There's no balua in it. Rav Dov Lior, that holds. Well, he doesn't say it. Rav Dov Lior proposes that it's possible, and he requests from scientists to investigate this question. Actually,
No,
that's what
but
he says.
Rav Melamed more or less said that.
Yeah.
It's like glass, yeah.
He like Moore said it. Is it he that's his psak.
Yeah. But he's also the rabbi that talks to Reform rabbis. So what are we going to do?
But he didn't actually say about stainless steel. That was like in the end, stainless steel was for him too far. He said as a proposal. For glass, he said completely mutar le'akel lekatchila.
Who? I was quoting Rav Dov Lior. You're
No,
quoting
Rav Zalman, Rav Eliezer.
Rav Eliezer Melamed. Wait, who is
No, yeah.
Lexi quoting? Lexi, who are you quoting?
I was quoting Rev Melamed.
Rav Melamed also. Okay. I didn't see, yeah, okay. So
I was
yeah,
a
maybe
Talmud of Reb Zalman Melamed. Eliezer Melamed is a lot different than instead. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was a proposal, right? That's what I saw, that it was a proposal. He proposed it, but maybe you're saying it's fine. Anyway, to each his own research shall live by. Okay, let's look at the Tur Tzadi Vav, and let's go slowly because we're going to see all these dinim now, and they're all there. And as what we've discussed is all kind of going to be there. Actually, Jessica, you want to read for us?
Sure. Okay. Snan או צלקת שחתכה בסכין של בשר, אסור לאכלם בחלב עד שיקלוף מקום החתך או עד שטעים שלא יהיה בו טעם בשר.
Okay.
So going slowly. A radish, and there's a bit of debate about this word and what exactly it means and whether it should have a samach, but
What's
maybe
the difference if it has
pickles.
what's the difference between if it has a sin or a samach? or a shin and a
Well,
sin.
I thought the difference was that if it has a shin, it's pickles, and if it's got a sin, it's boiled vegetables. But
Oh, similar. I would say that if it's with a shin or a sin, I don't know, shin, it's cooked vegetables. It's any kind of vegetables, I think. And then if it's slakot, it means silka. It means dafka, the greens
beetroots.
of beets. So he the Beit
Yeah,
Yosef is saying,
Jastrow kind of had like a mix of definitions for both of them. And like
Yeah,
it had
well-
boiled vegetables for both, and then
exactly. So it's confusing. What's the difference? But that's
Yeah.
the difference, because we saw in the Gemara in Avodah Zarah that silka is the same din as snow. That it's the tops of the beetroots are harif. So that's what he's not saying all vegetables. He's saying dafkat snon and silko.
Mhm.
Those ones, if you cut it with a knife, it's asur lochlam bechalav ad sheyiklof makom achetech o ad sheta'im le, and there's our din. You could taste it. Shelo yebo shum basar. But anyone have a problem with this din? Is this antithetical to anything we've read? It is.
well, if you're getting into the concept of nat bar nat, like the question of kind of how much taste you'd expect there to be for something to potentially still be
The Gemara's
as
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. But
Or the Achiachtoch Makom Achetech was not explicit in the Gemara. That seemed to be about like the kishut, not about the
exactly. Here, I'm making you guys wake up. That din that he says cutting the hetech is only by the kishot. Mapitom. It's only by the kishot, not by but it's snon, it's totally usher. Right? Snon is totally usher. How does it help to do? I understand the tasting you could taste, but I don't understand why you would cut off the edge. That's not a din by snon. Anyone have an answer for me?
I mean,
Well, the Beis Yosef says.
well, the
it's-
Rosh says that it's ad kedei klipa.
Yeah, well, how does the Rosh?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So how does the Rosh prove that?
Just
So,
a-
so here, read for us the Beis Yosef, where he quotes the Rosh, which is Masha Katav Rabbeinu O Shlakot. Oh no, not that one. The next one. Masha Katav Rabbeinu
Ad
Ad Sheyiklof
Sheyiklof.
Makom Ad Sheyiklof. Everyone sees
Ken
that?
כתב שם הראש, זה לשנה, חופת דצנן, מבליע השומנית בתוכה, ועושה עד כדי קליפה, ולא דמה לקראת של חילטית, שאסרו כולה משום שחותכים אותה בסכין של גויים. דשרי הטעם, שהקטים קטנים, ואין יכול לדעת באיזה מקום חתכוהו. לפיכך אסרו כולה.
Okay, so that's it. So this is a little bit complicated. What's his proof here? What is he saying? First of all,
He's
what's the Rosh saying?
saying, the Rosh is saying that it's not similar. The case of the radish isn't similar to the case of asafoetida. And the difference that he makes is that the asafoetida is cut so small that you couldn't possibly know where exactly the knife, you can't do klipa effectively. And that's why klipa doesn't work for asafoetida, whereas for radishes that are kind of cut somewhat normally, theoretically, it would be fine to do klipa.
And so, what's his proof?
I mean, this seems to be a proof against.
You're right. No,
like,
I agree with you. You said it perfectly, Jessica. But still, why does he have to read it that way? In other words, why wouldn't we go with a straight reading of the Gemara that says it's all usher? In other words, what's he doing? What's his reading of the Gemara? How does he read the Gemara? When the Gemara says in Chulin that the tznon is usher, what does it mean?
It just means aso to a klipa. Like that's
Oh,
the
it means
havamina.
also to
That's like
klipa.
generally how things would be. Is yeah.
Usher to a klipa. Exactly. But then how is that different from the kishot?
Because
Which
it's
says-
just a grira, which is like scraping
Exactly.
off instead of.
So there's two different levels. When it said usser, it meant usser of an inch or a half an inch or whatever a finger's thickness is. And when it says greda, it just meant like a very thin layer. Lexi, what do you got?
Which, like, I think it is a good close read of the Gemara, because we talk about this often more when it comes to like ruling things, you know, chayav, pator, balasor, mutter, right? But we often assume the things that are being compared don't skip steps, right? That like the general assumption is often that thing being compared is like one step removed, right? And so if the idea was just the tznon is like kulo asor, then the other thing that's being contrasted to it, the more mekil thing, well, they should have said like klipa or like ntilat makom, right? The fact that it says greda, this thing that like we haven't had so much before, but that seemingly is supposed to be even lesser. It doesn't feel so intuitive to say that it's just two opposites, right? It's either a little scrape or kulo asor, right? That like it makes more sense to say, oh, greda is in contrast to something a little bit more.
Agreed. I wouldn't say you're right. I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. It certainly fits. It's not problematic, but it's also not the most obvious way to read it. But it's certainly not problematic because we can say things go by levels. But occasionally things do jump. Occasionally things do jump and we don't like it. It doesn't, we say, but you're right. I agree with you. That is part of it, but that's not a proof. What's his proof? I'm still looking for his proof. This requires a little bit of thinking about why I think there's a proof here going on. And it has to do with the chopping up smallly. I think. In other words, like this. Go ahead.
I think like he's like proving against, he's saying like the only reason why you would have a hava amina that it would be the whole thing is because of what we said by chiltit, which like I don't know that that's true. That's the only reason I would have thought that, but like, and therefore like all you have to argue is that the chiltit is different, and the way it's different is that that like there is no way of taking
He's bothered by this, yes. He's bothered by why the Gemara didn't say taste it by the chiltit. Why did the Gemara say taste it? Didn't say taste it. I'll tell you why I didn't say taste it.
About koret shel chiltit, right? Why not just say chiltit? Why not just say you can never?
Exactly. Why did it say? So that's what he's using. He's saying, you know why it didn't say taste it? Because it's a quart. It's tiny little pieces of chiltit. And therefore the tasting doesn't work. Why does it taste? Or why did he say take a klipa? Yeah. So he's saying like this. Why did he say tasting? Because you can't taste it because the isser is when we say something is usser, it goes through a kedei natila, a thicker amount. And these pieces are, let's say, an inch square. These little pieces, maybe they're an inch square. So now they're usser entirely. In other words, if it wouldn't be a quart, if it wouldn't have been a quart, it would have been, let's say, a size of an inch, then it would have been different din. It would have been cut off the end. Why did the Gemara had to go to a case of quart in order to say it's totally usser? Because if it would have been a big piece, it would have said just cut off the end. So you see from that by the most harif thing in the world, the only reason that we'd say the whole thing is usser is when it's small. So by snow, which can't be more harif than chiltit, you can't say it's all usser. In other words, he's saying dafka. When the Gemara said chiltit, when it's cut up very small, is usser, it's dafka because it's cut up very small. And that's the only time it's usser. If it would be a long piece of chiltit, then it wouldn't be totally usser. It would be just partially usser. You'd remove it. From that, he learns a din of removing a kedei natila. Therefore, there is a din, and you can't be more strict by the snow. That's his proof. You know what I'm saying? Because he says it's a tight reading of the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. Why did it say chiltit is always usser? It said after piece of chiltit. That because if it would be big, it wouldn't have ussered the whole thing. So you can't tell me that when it says usser in chulin, that it means the whole thing. Who gives this explanation of the Rosh? Only me. That's the explanation of the Rosh. That's his proof. Because otherwise, he's pulling a rabbit out of a hat. He's just making up a din that there's a new thing called Kedei Natila. And who says there is? The Gemara is against the Gemara. And that becomes the halacha. That becomes the halacha. Pulling a radish
He
out
said
of
it's
a
a new
hat.
thing. Isn't he just drawing it from other places where you've said Kedei Klipa, that it seems to him similar? So why should it be any different?
I don't mean to say the concept of Kedei Klipa is not asur, but I could easily say that a davar harif, I think Rashi learns, I could say a davar harif is like it's hot, and it's like you're boiling it, and therefore he said, it's worse than the fish, Rashi said. The fish is only Kedei Klipa, Kedei Natila, whatever. But he says, this is worse, because harif is worse than a klisheni or than the hot fish. So Rashi is clearly learning that the whole thing is asur because it's harif. So I don't say there's no such thing as he's not inventing a new animal. He's pulling a known animal out of a hat. We know there's such a thing as klipa. He's just applying it here, which is not obvious and certainly not the way Rashi learns. But that becomes this halacha that we're seeing here in the Torah. And after all, the Torah is the child of the Rosh, so he writes. Snon, Oshlak, right? He writes. He writes, Sheyiklov, Ad Sheyiklov. All right, let's take a break.
Nachum,
So continuing in this Beis Yosef, after we quoted the Rosh, who says basically that give us this din of klipa, we then see Rashba. So read there.
Okay. והרשב"א כתב בתורת הבית, ראיתי הרבן שכתב דבקליפה לא סגי. Okay, so I can read it. Okay. דאם כן, לימה הכי בהדיא. אלא מדי כאמר.
So wait, I mean, he's still in the middle of the quote, but now I'll stop you. So what is he saying? Klipa, he disagrees with the Rosh. Not be telling this klipa. You got it. The whole thing is asur. Why?
אלא דקאמר אסור.
No, why? What's his reason? What's his argument against the Rosh? Very strong argument.
Yeah,
should have said so.
I'm not sure.
You should have said so. Don't pull rabbits out of hats. Don't pull rabbits out of hats. Like, if it doesn't say it, don't say it says it. He says the imkain lema hachi behedya. Let it say it so directly. What, the Gemara has no words? It can't write that? Ella, go ahead.
Okay. אלא מדי כאמר אסור סתם איסור גדול כאמר. So because it said asur, so it's asur dehayinu kdei netilat makom, which means netilat makom. Mikol makom bigdei netilat makom sageilei.
So wait a minute. So wait a second. So what did the Rosh say? What is he arguing on? Is he arguing on? It's a funny argument now. It's arguing on. He's saying, what did the Rosh say? What was the Rosh did? What did you have to do?
You do right.
Klipa. And what is he suggesting that you do?
A bit more, like netilat makom.
A bit more, which it also doesn't say. Right? It also doesn't say that. But he's saying it should be a little bit more. Kedei netilat makom, which is like I was saying, like an inch. Or not an inch. It's whatever I thickness of a finger is, which I think different opinions on that. I would normally say 1 centimeter, but I think the Haredi rabbis say 2 centimeters. But in any case, I don't think it's more than 1 centimeter. But anyway, but for sure, netilat makom is enough. End of quote. That's the end of the quote. Now go on. V'lulei.
ולולי שכבר אמרה הרב ז"ל, הייתי אומר דאסור לגמרי. So if he didn't say that, like I would say that that it should be totally forbidden.
Who's speaking now?
It's Caro, like
It's the
Well,
Rashba.
Oh, the Rashba still?
Now it's the Rashba.
Oh,
In
He
other
was
words,
quoting the
wait, so
Ravad.
wait.
Yeah.
He was quoting the
He was quoting
Ravad.
the Ravad, and I said, okay,
Now we
because
finished
that's
the quote
weird,
of the
right?
Ravad.
Okay.
And the Rashba says, when he says Shekvar Amra Harav, the Rav is the Ravid. And
Okay.
he's saying, if he hadn't said this, I would say what the Gemara says. That's the Gemara.
Mm.
Like
Okay.
Rashi.
כאמר חריפותו הרבה הוא מושך ומפעפע בכולו. Right, because it spreads into the whole thing. ותדע לך דדברים החריפים תפי בעלי עשרו קורט של חרטית, משום דמחתכלי בסכין דארמה, ולגמרי אסרו לי, ולא שרו לי בנטילת מקום. Okay.
But he doesn't learn my diuk. He doesn't learn my diuk. He doesn't learn, well, wait a second. The reason why the cord is usher is because it's cut up small. He just says, no, that's even if it would be big, it would be usher. This is, yeah. Alma.
Alma, משום שחריפות מבריאה בכולו, גזרו עליו לאוסרו לעולם לגמרי. כנזכר לאל, עד כאן לשונו. Okay, so it's the end of Rashba.
Now the end of the Rashba. So the Rashba seems to say, what's the psak of the Rashba? What's the psak of the Rashba?
He says like it should be wait, was
it should be say
forbidden.
The next word.
Like, it should be forbidden.
Totally. But what is the halacha? Says he says Mula, he has a lot of respect for the Ravid.
Right. So because he said that, so let's do Netilat Makom.
So it sounds like the Rashba is saying, I would like to paskin lechulo asur, but what can I say? The Ravid says I'm not going to go against the Ravid. So now continue
but he's still
on.
more stringent than the Ravid.
He's still more stringent than the Rosh.
And then the Rosh, sorry, right?
Yes. Umitoch, go ahead.
ומתוך דבריו נראה שאף על פי שהיה נראה לו לומר כן, הוא מבטל דעתו מפני דעת הרייבד.
Like we said. In other words, even though he'd like to be more machmir, he's humble. Ella.
שממה שכתב בתורת הבית הקצר, איסור זה של צנון וסילקה, יש מי שאומר שהוא עד כדי נטילת מקום, והשאר מותר. ויראה לי שהכל אסור, כי הרבה הם בוראים עד כאן לשונו. Okay.
So wait. So here he's saying there are some that say that it's netilat makom, which is the right, and there are some that say, and I say it's asur totally. This is also the Rashba and Torah Sabayis. So now go on.
ונראה שהוא פוסק הלכה כדברי עצמו ודברי סמך.
דברי עצמו. It seems here like he is paskening his own opinion. He's less humble. He's saying, I think this is the halacha. He's saying this is the halacha. So this is the source for whose opinion? Who in the Shulchan Aruch, if anybody saw, who is going to go like the Rashba that it's all asur?
Rishal?
It's like Rama, right?
The Rama, yes, the Rama. The Rama is holding the whole onion is asur based on the Rashba. I'm trying to give you right. The Rashba is going to be the halacha.
Doesn't the Rama only hold that lechatchila though?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah.
So he doesn't really hold like the Rashba. He just has a chumrah to be chash for the Rashba, but he doesn't actually. I don't think he holds like.
He ultimately ends up saying that makom is fine.
Well, I don't want to get into too many details without reading it inside. But the point is, this opinion is ignored by the Rama, by the Mechaber, and is not ignored and is taken into account by the as lechatchila the din is that you should consider it all asur. Right. We'll see inside what he says. Hopefully we'll get to the Shulchan Aruch. But I'm just saying, I'm just sort of showing that the dinim that we're going to see later are here already. V'divrei, continue. Divrei smag.
ודברי סמ"ג שאכתוב בסימן זה כדברי הרייבד והר"ן, וכדברי הרייבד, אוקיי. והר"ן כתב בפרק כל הבשר סברת הרייבד וסברת הרשב"א, וכתב שהרע סובר כדברי הרייבד, אוקיי. ומכל מקום הר"ן נראה שדעתו נוטה לדעת הרשב"א, וזה לשון, אוקיי.
Continue. So we're saying the Ran is like the Rashba, and the Ra'ah is like the Ravid. Okay, go on.
ועם כל זה, מאחר שאותה ראיה של קולט של חלטית ישבה הראש בטוב טעם ודעת, נראה שיש לסמוך על דברי סמ"ג והרייבד והרעה ז"ל להתיר בנטילת מקום.
Yeah. So here what he's saying here. He's saying that the Ravid, he's saying like this, the Rosh's proof, which I think is my proof that I said to you, the proof that since it's only usher when it's small, is a very good, is tov tam, is a good proof. He is going to go with that, but he's not going to go with the Rosh totally, because he's not going to say klipas enough. He's going to stick with the Ravid and the Ran, that, sorry, not the Ravid and the Ran, the Ravid and the Ra'ah, the Hatir, when? B'netilat makom. B'netilat makom. In other words, not the klipa, but a centimeter. So this means that if you have an onion and you cut it with a fleshig knife, just take a parv knife and cut a netila makom off of the onion, and now you can use the rest of the onion for whatever you want. That would be the din of the mechaber. Now look at the Darkei Moshe Aleph, Alish.
Right, so I'm online. So Darkei Moshe Aleph, okay, see. כתב באור החיים, הדנוהגים לאסור לכתחילה בבישול ובצליעה.
No, that's not what I have.
Okay, so that's what is Darkei Moshe Aleph here, so I'll try it.
Oh, really? Although what you said is good. Maybe, well, skip a little bit ahead. What you said is I like what you said, but I don't think it was what I have in my Aleph.
Okay, so
you can read it. Read it. If everybody else has it, then I'll listen.
No, I'm online. I'm on Al HaTorah, but I got the book also, just smaller letters. Okay, so if I can go on. If it's the place, okay, so you tell me. כתב באור החיים, הדנוהגים לאסור לכתחילה בבישול וצליעה, היינו לאכול עם חלב עצמו. אבל ליתן בכלי חולבת שרי. Is that the right part or no?
No,
it's not that.
That's
okay.
the previous Siman. That should be the previous Siman.
Oh, okay, that's what listed here is Aleph.
You're speaking
It's ask somebody else here. So, Raphael, you have it? No, it should say Upa Aruch. By me, it says Upa Aruch. Alan, you want to read?
וכתב בערוך? Okay. Go for it. Is it וכתב בערוך?
Yeah.
No.
כלל למד ח' הביא דברי הרשב"א, וכן נראה דעת הר"ן פרק כל הבשר.
So what does that mean?
Right, Arif brings the Rashba's opinion that we were just discussing earlier. Also seems to be the Ran's opinion as well.
In other words, well, why is he commenting this at all? Well, it's a hint to what he's going to paskin. He's saying the Aruch paskins like the Rashba, that's Kulo Asur. And he's mentioning this because that's the way he's going to paskin. In other words, he's saying that the Beit Yosef didn't notice that what the Aruch didn't mention what the Aruch says, and I think it's important that the Aruch says this. Okay. Just a second. Yeah, so here, Alan. Alan, you want to read a little bit further in the Beit Yosef? So basically, we've got all these different opinions. What are the different opinions? Laroche says you need netilat, you need klipa. The Ravid says you need netilat makom, and the Rashba says you need the whole thing to be aser, and the Shulchan Aruch or the Mechaber seems to be in the here in the Beit Yosef is paskening like the middle opinion, the Ravid. Okay, so now go on. Umasha Kasav.
ממש כסף רבינו, או עד תתאים לו, אם יש בו טעם בשר,
Umasha Kasav Rabbeinu o ad sheta'im le
Yep.
im yesh bo
אם
tam
יש בו טעם
basar.
בשר, כן כתב שם הראש. והוא מפורש שם בגמרא, דאמרינן התם, קרא שמלאך בבשר, אסור לאכול ברותח צנן, שחתכו בסכין. צנון שחתכו בסכין, מותר לאכול בכותח. Right. So
That was the first Gemara that we learned today.
Right. So the Rosh was explaining that Gemara. V'sikna tama mishum d'haid efshar l'metame v'haid lo efshar l'metame. Right. One for that's known, it could be possible to taste it if it got with meat, and but not if there were in this or like down.
Right.
Upiresh Rashi. Haitanon, after lo Yisrael Tama, Kodem Sheet Nana Bekutach. V'hai mutar. The Ka'amar, v'hai mutar the Ka'amar, Kagan Shatama Betchila. V'lo haya batam Shamnanit. Right. So Rashi explained back there that it's possible for a Jew to taste it before you put it with the Kutach. And when it says it's mutar, it means specifically when the Jew tasted it first. And ensured there was no taste of the shaman. This is all what we discussed before. And this is what the Rashba said as well, but he required hadacha.
You need to wash off. The vegetable.
אסור לאכול בכותח, שהצנן חריף ובלaya מן השמנונית שנקרא של הסוכין. Right.
You don't have to translate. You can just read it because this is all just repetition.
Okay. שנקרא של הסוכין, ומדברים מראים, ושלא טעמו קודם שיאכלנו עם הכותח. אבל אם טעמו היטב, ולא הרגיש בו טעם בשר, מותר לאכלו עם הכותח, לאחר שידיח היטב מקום החתך. וכיוון דאין טעם בשר נרגש בו בידוע, שלא בלע ממנו כלום. עד כאן.
Right. So he's basically just explaining that first Gemara gave us the idea of Ti'ima. Continue on.
וכתב בספר תרומה, דאפילו אין הסכין בו בן יומו אסר. זה לשון ספר תרומה. ויכול להיות שאין חילוק בסכין, אלא אפילו אינו בן יומו חשוב כבן יומו. דגב חורפי דצנון או ירק, מחליה והווה לשבח, כדאמרינן גבי קורת של חלטית של גויים בפרק אין המדין. That's about the Zara. עד כאן.
So this is the Sefer Truma. The Sefer Truma is mentioning that ein chiluk bein sakin ben yomo or not ben yomo, because the chorfa it wakes it up and it makes it good flavor. Now, it does two pulot. Let's clarify that. It does two pulot, right? It also takes it away from being pagum. Yeah.
Well, you could say
Right. The Hari foods has two roles that we see in the Tznon versus the Tiltit, right? We have the idea of absorbing more because it's Harif, and we have the idea of making usually pagum flavor, not pagum.
Right. In other words, right. Okay. Makes it from being pagum to not being pagum, and not from being old to being fresh or whatever. Yeah. Okay. And also being hot. Okay, go ahead.
Right, and the Sefer Truma got all this from Tosfos. Gan. Right. V'hu midivray Tosfos, shekat b'perk,
Kol basar.
Yeah. Tzarichin im masachim mekunach, ve'en ben yomo. I chorpa ditu mechal yelashevach, kedamin agavechaltit perk im mamidin. Right, maybe this is what we read.
Okay. So good. Here, now let's skip ahead to just a second. Yeah, skip ahead to Aleph Bet in the Beit Yosef. Or I'll read. I'm gonna read. I'll read here.
Okay.
You see Aleph Bet where it says smak? The smak?
Yep.
Everyone has that? The smak. The smak katav perish Rabbeinu Baruch. So who's Rabbeinu Baruch? Let's say for a truma. So smak katav perish Rabbeinu Baruch. Dafilu hasakin eino ben yomo. Lefi zeh, he says even if it's eino ben yomo, it's still going to be oser. Lefi zeh mashma afilu below shamnunit. So that's really the two things that I meant. It's doing two things. First of all, it's creating actual flavor, and it's also making it. Now, there's two reasons that we could have been making. One, it's clean, and two, it's old. So even if it would be fresh, but it's clean, it shouldn't really do anything. No, if it's harif, even if it's made, it not only makes it fresh, it also makes clean thing as though it's shamnunit there.
It's interesting.
What?
Oh, right. It's right. It's interesting that he makes the inference of if Eino ben Yoma is also not okay, then it must be Eino ben Yoma with Sham Nunidam, which is not the inference the Shulchan Aruch makes, which is Eino ben Yoma is not okay if there is Sham Nunidan, but if there's no Sham Nunidan and you've cleaned it, Eino ben Yoma is also okay. Like it doesn't what the Smak says about the Sefer Truma, it doesn't totally follow. It doesn't follow that if you think Eino ben Yoma is not okay, and that's
When you say not okay, explain to me what is not okay.
That Eino ben Yoma could also oser. That means davka even if the iser is not, even if there's nothing ba'ayin on it.
Yeah, because Eino ben Yoma, it does make sense because if it's Eino ben Yoma, it's irrelevant if there's iser ba'ayin there.
No, the opposite.
But
If there's Yisrael Be'ain, it's irrelevant if it's Eino ben Yomo.
That right, he's saying
exactly
afilu ben Yomo.
Right. No, but once we
afilu,
say that afilu Eino ben Yomo is oser, then it must be talking about a clean knife. Because
that's not
because it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant if it's dirty, then who cares if it's 3 days old? It's actual got mamashut there.
But
so once we say that Eino ben Yomo is a problem, then that must mean we're talking about a clean knife. Because if Eino ben Yomo is, go ahead.
But the Shulchan Aruch himself ultimately makes that chiluk and says Eino ben Yomo is not okay unless it's clean. And so he does interpret the idea that Eino ben Yomo is oser as specifically Eino ben Yomo that is not necessarily clean. Maybe there are several levels we could say there's something.
I don't want to talk about the Shulchan Aruch yet because we didn't see it, and I don't want to get into these details because maybe I have a different reading than you. Maybe I want to see what you're saying, and I don't want to go there now. But I'm just saying it does make sense what he's saying, because if you're saying that a sakin that is Eino ben Yomo is going to cause Isser to be created, then that would only be a relevant thing to say if the knife is clean, because if it's dirty, then of course, then it's irrelevant that it's Eino ben Yomo because there's actual fat there going into the food when you cut it. So anyway, we cut the Rabbeinu Baruch. Da afilu asakin Eino ben Yomo, but lefi zeh mashma da afilu below shamnunit be'ein. It should also be asur, and that's the two pulos. Va'od perish Rabbeinu Baruch deshuman deshumin ubatzalim v'krishim yesh lahem din snon v'chiltit. So there we get another din from him. So the Rebbeinu Baruch is causing us trouble. He's first of all saying that a knife that is old and clean is going to also cause a problem, which Rashi certainly wouldn't agree with. And he's now saying that the list in the Gemara is not a complete list, but also Batsalim and Krishim. And now he says, Mihu, Rabbeinu Yechiel Omer, Ein lecha ela mat she'amru chachamim davka tznon v'chiltit. Don't start creating more issues than what are in the Gemara. And we have only tznon and chiltit. The Smag katav af lefi divrei ba'al truma b'mei devarim amurim shechatchu abatzalim dak yudak. But when he said that it's usher, it's and the usher kulo, he really meant that it's dak dak kederek she'osin lekedera aval lo chatcho ki'im mitzad echad afal pi she'ein dai begarid lebei psike mikol makom yachtoch makom ba'omek v'dayo. You could just cut a certain thickness, and that's enough. In other words, he's saying that the Rabbeinu Baruch, is it the Rabbeinu Baruch? Oh, Balatru, yeah, Rabbeinu Baruch never meant to paskin like the Rashba, that it's kulo aser. He's only paskining like the Ravid.
Also in the Ben Yomo point, it's not when the Sefer Truma was quoted by the Beit Yosef, he said right? It wasn't clear that he was wholehearted.
You're right. It didn't seem like it was totally agreeing like that.
Smock has either has a different girsa or it's just amplifying it. And even the Tosfot, they just said it was a tzriya.
Mm-hmm. You're right. It seemed like it was. It seems like it has gone from being possibly usher to being definitely usher. But that's the way the Smock understood it, or this, yeah, and the Smock. I don't have the, I didn't look inside of how exactly he wrote in Sefer Truma. I'm just checking something. All right, let's go to Shulchan Aruch. I'm just seeing if there's anything. Yeah, let's go to Shulchan Aruch because we. Yeah, let's go to Shulchan Aruch. So we saw basically the Makorot. We saw how the Rosh got his din. We saw the three basic opinions are the Rosh that says it's Klipa, the Ravid that says Natila, and the Rashba that says it's Kulos. Well, let's go to Shulchan Aruch. And Lexi, you want to read? Oh, Joel's not here. I just noticed that Joel's not here.
Sure. נון הוא סילקה שחתכם בסכין של בשר בן יומו, או שאינו מקונח, אסור לאוכלם בחלב עד שיתום מקום החתך כדי נטילת מקום, שהוא כעובי אצבע, ושיטמנו ולא יהיה בו טעם בשר, שאז מותר בהדחה. ויש אומרים, דהו הדין לאינו בן יומו והוא מקונח. ואם לא נטל מהם כדי נטילת מקום...
Wait a second, stop. Let's go slower. So first of all, he corrected Silka. It's just these two things he's saying, really. Snon and Silka.
He's about to expand it. He's using these because he starts off with these because these are the examples we get in the Gemara, right? Yes. So he starts off by giving these paradigms of like a radish or beet leaves that were cut with a basari knife. He starts off the Stam opinion he presents is that this only applies if the knife is either ben yomo or Eino ben yomo but has fat like ba'ayin on it. In that case, if you cut it, it's usher to eat the thing with dairy unless you remove a netilat makom, right? So he goes like the Ravid's position.
Wait, does he say there's fat on it?
Yeah, or she'eno mekunach.
Or she'eno mekunach.
Yeah.
That's an or. So there's two possibilities. It doesn't have to be both. So it could only be.
He says it only applies if it's either ben yomo, even if it's clean, right? But that
Right.
like that it would impart ben yomo positive flavor,
Well, it's
or
not like Rashi.
ben
It's not like
yomo,
Rashi.
but it's not clean, right? So basically, the main thing is he does not think he's holding like
It's an
the
intermediate opinion.
he's holding like the opinions that say specifically, well, we have multiple things here. First of all, he's not holding like the Rashba, he's holding like the Ravid vis-a-vis the Netilat Makom as opposed to Kulo. Second of all, he's holding like, I believe it's the Maharam, that it's only the Chiltit that has the capacity to make absorbed flavor become Eno Pagum, right? His, in the Stam opinion, he's about to present a different opinion,
Mhm.
right? But the first opinion he presents assumes that most Harif are not able to make absorbed Pagum flavor, not Pagum.
Yafet. Very nice. Okay. So
Okay. So he says
we're,
that,
we're in agreement.
necessary to eat this with dairy unless you
And,
take it into
and he allows this din of yitamenu.
right. Or if he says it's fine, like if you taste it and you're like, there's no meat taste, the Mechaber says that's fine, as long as you wash it off a little bit. And then he brings the Yesh Omrim, which is the idea that even if it is a clean Eno Ben Yomo knife, the Charif things still have the ability to make the absorbed flavor like a Tam L'Shevach or not Pagum. Right? V'im lo natal mehem k'tei netilat makom v'gam lo tamam u'bashlam b'chalav tzarich shishim k'neged ma shenagam hasakin b'hem u'adin l'chatcham b'sakin shel v'kochavim. So if you cut these things, you didn't take you do a netilat makom before then cooking them with dairy, you need shishim against the amount of the knife that basically came into contact with this thing.
Right.
And same
And
thing,
and we don't say what din. What din do we not say?
and that's why he
We
also
don't say
adds
Hanan.
why he also adds hu hadin, like same thing. Even if it was a treif knife, we still say
We
we're
don't
just
say.
measuring the amount of the knife that was in contact with it.
Exactly. So wait, go and read now hey in the Shach.
One sec. Ushi tamenu. Right. Had te'ima mahane mevor b'shas uba ashiri v'tor v'rashba mihu hochachti b'sifri min hashas da l'chila asor la'ochlo b'kutach al yedei te'ima. So he's like, I have proved that you can't lichatchila rely on te'ima to eat this with kutach.
So okay, so just stop there. So now he throws away the din of tima. So we were all happy we had this din of tima. Shach comes along and says, no, in the garbage can, in the dustbin of history. Now read Tur. What? Excuse me? Oh, lechatchila. What does he mean, b'diavad? Yeah, b'diavad, it could work. What exactly does he mean, b'diavad? He probably means, he's going to say, but what he means is that you tasted it and then you said, oh, there's no flavor of meat here, but I still won't put it in my soup. And by mistake, you put it in your soup. Right? In other words, you tasted it and you said, oh, there's nothing to meat here. And then you said, well, anyway.
You like forgot that what had just happened. You placed it on your kutach. You can now eat those together and it's fine.
Also that. In other words, b'diavad means you have to imagine a b'diavad case where you tasted it and then then you still know that you can't use it because that would be lechatchila. But now it got mixed somehow. So now you could eat it. Okay, so look now, Lexi, go to bet in the Taz.
Right. Right. So Taz just says like we don't do te'ima anymore, right? And the Shach points out that from the Taz's comment, it seems like some afilu b'diavad, he doesn't think te'ima works.
So now read Vav in the Shach. I'm giving you. I'm running you through the ringer here.
Right. So this was what the Mechaber added the Yesh Omrim, that the Tarif things like Snow, etc. can even make absorbed Eno Ben Yomo flavor, not Pagum. Hatam, right? The Chorfei Snow Machile Umashvele L'Shevach. כמו קורת של חילטית וקמן, וכן דעת כל האחרונים, וכן נוהגים. Right, so
there you go.
the says, yes, this is what we do. We do think that harif things have the ability to make absorbed flavor.
So the minhag has come about to be like the Tosfos was worried. Perhaps it's like this. Well, the minhag, in other words, the shach is just reporting the minhag. The minhag is that we that's what people do. We assume that even though the knife was clean and eno ben yomo, when we cut it with the thing, we cut it with this knife, and now the onion is forbidden to use, and we can't taste it. We can't, and even though it was clean, it's all going to be usher because that's the minhag. Jewish families are careful about these things. Okay, turn the page, and let's start here. Aaron, why don't you read the Ramah? And read it slowly because there's a lot of things there.
ואם חתכן דק, צריך לשער 60 נגד כל הצנון. ויש אומרים שאם חתך צנון בסכין של איסור, כולו אסור. וכן אם חתכו בסכין של בשר, אסור כולו בחלב.
All right, so stop there. Okay, so go back.
So if you've cut them up finely, you need 60 against the entire tznon, because it's going to be kadena tila for each of them, which is going to be larger than the pieces. And some people say,
wait a second. You need, what does it mean? Im hatchan dak dak, sarich l'sha'er, shishim neged kol hatznon. But what is this tznon? In other words, is it bigger or smaller? So look at tet. In the tet in the shach. Aaron.
the chol chaticha v'chaticha ne'esra kadei natila. Miuhainu davka kshetznon katan hasakin, o she'en hasakin lefanenu, shenuchal l'sher ba.
We're not saying that it gets larger than the knife. In other words, he's saying only if it's a small tznon, therefore you could possibly need against the whole tznon, because the knife is bigger than the tznon. But if the knife was small and the tznon was big, then you go by the smallest of the two, right? You go by the smaller of the two. That makes sense?
Yes. אבל כשהסכין קטן מהצנון, והוא לפנינו, פשיטא דאין צריך 60 אלא כנגד הסכין. As you said.
Why don't we say chanan?
Because it's only chanan kadei natila. He's I think gonna say.
Because I think it's because we don't have hanan in it with heter.
We don't have hanan with heterim, right?
מיהו בסכין של עובד כוכבים או של איסור, לדידן דקיימלן חנן בכל איסורים, אם כן כל חתיכה וחתיכה נעשה נבלה כדי נטילה.
So if it's from Isser, you explain. Go ahead.
If it's from Isser, then it's Aser Kadei Natila, and that Natila has become Nevela. And the Shach doesn't hold this way, but for those who would hold that Natila is an Isser Davuk, that would mean that when you cook it, maybe the whole thing becomes Hanan.
But also, even without that, just by cutting it into small pieces, each piece
has become Hanan.
Becomes Hanan. Right.
Right. So
but only Kadei Natila, apparently.
But if each piece is smaller than Kadei Natila,
sure.
then yeah. Right. So Im ken kol chaticha v'chatin as like then even came shekhat chod.
Stop there. So wait a second. So what have we got here? So he says like this: when the Mechaber says Im chatach dak dak tzarich l'sha'er shishim keneged kol tznon, he means if it's a small tznon, but not ad kedei that you're going, unless it's an isser knife, but not ad kedei that you're going to have more than the volume of the knife blade. Okay, and then he goes on. V'yesh omrim she'im chatach tznon b'sakin shel isser kulo asur. In other words, that's exactly the din that the Shach was saying. Then it would become Hanan.
Sorry, back in the Shach now or the Ramah?
No, back to the Ramah.
Okay.
V'ken im chatcho b'sakin shel basar.
Asur kulo b'chalav.
And who's that? Who's he passing like?
Seems like that's also the Rashba.
Yeah. So now we've gone to the Chumrah opinion. In other words, so we're going to say that the Sephardim are going to say, or the people who go like the Machaber are going to say, you need, it's like the Ravid, you need Kedei Netila. And now he's saying, the Ramah, am holding like the Rashba, which means the whole thing is Asur. We can't know again lechatchila. We're lechatchila like this. Aval b'diavad.
Aval b'diavad en l'asur rak kedei netila.
What does it mean? What does it mean b'diavad?
Meaning if you cut it, then you threw it in you accidentally put it in your mixture and you said, oops, I don't have shishim neged the entire thing. But I do have shishim neged the kedei netila,
Right.
assuming this was a sakin shel iser. Then you b'diavad, you're fine.
In other words, you can't, if you cut, let's take the practice case. You cut your knife, you cut your onion with a fleshik knife because you're using it for some fleshik food, but you only wanted half the knife, half the onion. And now you have half of this onion lying on your counter, and it's a little fleshik onion. So according to the Mechaber, just cut off kedei netila, and now you can use the rest of the onion for milchik food. According to the Ramah, you can't. The whole onion is fleshik, but if you, by mistake, cut it up and threw it in your milchik soup with a milchik knife, let's say, so now the only amount you have to mevatel would have been the kedei netila of the onion. So that's what you were saying before, that the ikar halacha is really, b'diavad the halacha is like the Ravid, but lechatchila the halacha is like the Rashba.
Because im chatach it's not atzma. Aval im chatach hayarak should be Yoreh. Shel hatznon ein lachush. This is if you cut the tznon itself. But if you're just cutting off like the leaves at the top, or I forget exactly like the stem, then that's fine. That's not part of the actual food. Im sapek im neftach b'sakin shel isur azlin on lekula. If you're not actually sure if it was cut with sakin shel isur, then you should go lekula, which is a confusing din because you might think that would be a sefek.
So look at Yud Bet in the Shach.
V'im yesh sefek. Harav kitzer kanktzad shebahagad sharei dora v'hagad iser v'heter lo hitir maharai b'sefek ela hakrin. So the only
I think the kreen is horseradish.
Crane.
Crane, right? Crane, what we would call crane. So he only allowed horseradish because. Go ahead.
Mitam the harbe poskim enam osrian ela b'sakin ben yoma v'chen yesh poskim enam osrian ela b'tznon v'lo b'midi acharini v'im keim b'tznon heicha deyadu shesakin haya ben yoma el demesupak im chatach b'hatznon Ola, di have chatach bevadai have or the kolel masveka lechumra. Right. So he's saying that the Ramah was not precise. This sefek only works. We only permit it with horseradish, where we have a tseiruf of. Some people say only ben yoma is a problem, and some people say only certain vegetables are a problem. I don't know if these all count as vegetables, but so therefore with horseradish we're going to permit it, but otherwise if we actually have for a tznon or something like that a sefek that it was cut with a sakin iser, that would be a sefek asur d'oraita in the chumrah.
Right. Now go on.
In the shach or in the Ramah?
In the Mechaber, in the Ramah. לכן קונים
הצנונות שיש בין חיתוכים לצד זבנותיהם. כי תלינן שנעשה במרה וחצינה. So therefore you can buy pre-cut tznonot from non-Jews because we assume that it was done in an okay manner.
Wait. I want to specify a little bit more. It's not just pre-cut. when you dig up your vegetables with a hoe or a shovel, you invariably the shovel breaks into the flesh of the vegetable. When you're digging in the ground, you don't know where they are. In fact, when I was in a certain country, Georgia, the potatoes there had all kinds of cuts in them because they actually dug them with a shovel. So we're talking about radishes well, let's see. We can assume that you did it with a mara. Mara is a hoe. So maybe they would cut specific. So maybe they did cut off the bottom piece intentionally, but they did it with a hoe. We assume it was with a hoe, the chatzina, another kind of hoe. Right. So what if you could tell that it was clearly done with a sakin? They clearly cleaned them up and cut off the tops and the bottoms and made it look nice. So then we'll buy it because we have no other option. And then we'll just cut off netilat makom like the Mechaber says. Because these are anyway horseradishes. The truth is horseradishes, when you dig them up, they don't grow, they're not round, and they're not like a carrot. They have roots that go in all different directions. So you basically
This is snun.
Is this snow?
It says לכן קונים הצנונות שיש בהן חטובות.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. But horseradish, you're right. So we'll actually look at Yud Gimel. We'll look at Yud Gimel here. Just our last thing. I'll read Yud Gimel. Ki talinan af im nechtach besakin, even if it's cut with a knife. Mekom makom stam kli shel goy eno ben yomo. First of all, the kli is eno ben yomo, even though we said that we are paskening that doesn't matter. V'yesh poskim machshirim she'eno ben yomo, because there are some that don't hold like it. There's some that allow that. So we're allowed to therefore tole that the knife that they're therefore going to allow the opinion of the Ravid to take hold. Fine, so that's it. I mean, basically, he just gets into some detailed examples. There's an example of lemons, which is important because it teaches a principle of what if you cut lots and lots of things, how many klipas do you need? You cut, let's say, 100 lemons with one knife, how many klipas do you need? Anyway, this is a very important din. I think it's good to see the basis of the halacha that we saw, where we see the different opinions, and then we see how the Ramah is basically, I would say, reporting the minhag as it stands, and showing, how we're posting, but that in certain cases we can rely on the more lenient opinion of the Mechaber, as far as Ben Yomo, as far as cutting off a piece, and those should guide you in your relationship with your spicy vegetables. Thank you very much. It was a very good year, very interesting year. I appreciate everybody who contributed to this year, either asking questions, reading, or teaching classes. It was very enjoyable for me. And as far as next year, we will hear now what Rabbi Landis has to announce.
Okay.
So,